Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's Wednesday Wisdom guest, but we want to give a shout out to our podcast partners, the Florida Coaches Coalition, the Global Community of Women in High School Sports, and We Coach. These are three great groups that you really need to be a part of. So check them out and help support athletics here in the United States. We also want to give a shout out to our sponsors. So don't hit that fast forward button. Take the next 3 minutes and listen to our sponsors' messages, because they're all great companies. And if you're not using them, you should check them out. So let's give our sponsors their moment. We want to say thanks to Sideline Interactive, indoor scoring tables and video boards. You've heard me say before that we have a Sideline Interactive indoor score table in our gym, and it's just fantastic. We use it for home games, of course, but we also use it for pep rallies, for signing ceremonies. Their products are tremendously versatile, and their customer service is just outstanding. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. Check them out today. That's sidelineinteractive.com. We also want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they're on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. The Wall of Fame is an interactive touchscreen console that highlights your school's top performers, both past and present, in athletics, academics, and the arts. But Wall of Fame is so much more than that. It's an extensive content program that allows you to tell more compelling stories that will better engage your audience. Go to vitalsignswalloffame.com to check out their products, and when you're ready to order, use the link vitalsignswalloffame.com/Jake and get 5% off. That's vitalsignswalloffame.com/Jake. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. Go to hometownticketing.com. They're going to show you how to sell your tickets online, not just for athletic events, but for things like school dances, school plays, even graduation. And every step of the way, Hometown's going to provide you with a dedicated client success manager that's providing hands-on support. That's every step of the way. Go to hometownticketing.com and get started today. Simple and easy online ticketing. We also want to say thank you to Gipper. Go to Gipper.com and see how athletic directors are creating world-class marketing content for their school's social media channels. You can do it in seconds on any device, and you don't need any design experience. Use our podcast code ADPOD10 and you'll get 10% off. That's Gipper.com. Create custom content for your school's social media channel. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. Go to huddle.com and change the way you see the game. Huddle is going to provide you, your coaches, your teams, and your student athletes the tools that you need to compete at the highest level. Go to huddle.com and you're going to find a professional grade solution to the challenges that you face. At Huddle, we believe in sports and teams believe in Huddle. Join the 6 million users and turn your school into a Huddle school. That's huddle.com. We also want to say thanks to Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com and check out their entire suite of platforms, including Snap Store, Snap Manage, Snap Connect, and Snap Raise, their fundraising platform that we have used with great success. And they've helped schools just like yours raise over $700 million. They even have a program where you can get your funding before you actually start your fundraiser. I don't think any other program has that. Go to snapraise.com and find out about the entire Snap Mobile family. That's snapraise.com. We also want to say thanks to Final Forms. Go to finalforms.com and prepare for your best season ever. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like reminders about policies and physicals. They can help your coaches with communication and attendance. And for you as an athletic director, Final Forms can help with eligibility and rosters and all the reports that come across your desk. You know, it's time that you talk to a team that's walked in your shoes. To take those next steps, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake and get started with Final Forms. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Go to athleticsurveys.com and find out how they can create a custom survey that allows you to take the pulse of your student athletes and your parents. Athletic directors typically only hear from that 2%, that disgruntled parent or maybe a frustrated athlete. And we need to hear from them so we can affect positive changes in our program. But athletic surveys allows you to hear back from the 98% that really love and support your program. And that's a tremendously valuable tool to have when you're talking with your boss, your school board, or that disgruntled parent. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the pros at Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack and let them help you take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast. We have one of our founding team members, Michelle Meyer. If you're new to the podcast, Michelle was a college athlete, a college coach. She was also the director of NIL for San Diego State University's athletic department, one of the very first to be in that position. And she is the founder and CEO of the NIL Network, probably the go-to source for all things NIL. And well, first of all, Michelle, welcome back to Wednesday Wisdom.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
Okay, always a great time talking with you. There's been some changes since the last time we visited. So bring us up to date. Let us know what's going on with all things NIL.
Yeah, good to be back. I think it's been a couple months here and quite a few changes on my side of things. I think probably the biggest one most recently, I actually left my position at San Diego State about a month and a half ago to pursue NIL Network full time. And it's been quite an adventure so far over the last month and a half of getting, the website updated, the services finally out and launched to the world, and now working on some pretty cool projects around the NIL space. So yeah, we were just talking before we started recording, but last week was probably one of the busiest weeks of my life. I ended up finally getting launched NIL Verified, which is the first to market athlete NIL service provider verification process. So I know I've mentioned this on, I think probably in October last time we spoke, but basically I have partnered with an attorney who's a former compliance director at Oklahoma to put together this process. And my attorney will look over, make sure, it's normal business vetting process, and then also looks over the terms and or the standard contract that they have athletes sign into to make sure that the terms that are in there are fair and equitable for the athletes. Because in the first couple of years of NIL, I think that what I've seen, and especially being in-house at San Diego State and talking to other NIL directors across the country, that there are a lot of, new industry, a lot of new startups coming into the space. And unfortunately, there are a couple out there that don't have the athlete's best interest at heart and are asking them to sign into contracts, which are going to be really hard for some of these athletes to get out of down the road. And this process, NIL Verified, is meant to bring together companies that, are transparent, that prove that they are fair, athlete first, athlete driven, to become part of this network, that then I can go out and talk to different, athletic directors and coaches and athletes and say, hey, like, you're looking for service providers, somebody to help you navigate this space, whether that's the different marketplaces, e-commerce platforms, agencies, marketing support, those kind of things. This is now a network where you can trust in those companies. Their contracts have been vetted by a third party, which unfortunately, I guess going back to athletes reading and vetting their own contracts, they're just not yet at a place where they're going to pay $400 or $500 to get a contract read by an attorney. So I'm hoping that this helps with that process a little bit. So that was very exciting to get out. We launched with 8 inaugural members and kind of had one from every sub-industry in there, from a marketplace and education platform, e-commerce, legal services. So I now have a ton of meetings this week of interested businesses to be a part of that. So very positive problems there. But additionally, I did the first cohort of the NIL Accelerator, which is 4-hour-long course that really gives an overview of the entire industry, kind of where it was at before, what happened in the first couple of years, the stats around it, what the universities are providing for their NIL programs, what different, different sub-industries are within the space. I mean, gosh, 4 hours, we cover a lot of what's in the NIL world. So those both launched last week, that are up on the website now. And I also got to go up to LA to record a little podcast segment on NIL with actually an NFL athlete and a football athlete at UCLA in a little Hollywood studio. So it's very fancy, but busy week. And now we're moving forward.
Well, again, there's just so many things that I want to talk about, and I know our time's limited. We'll do this at the end, but go ahead and give out, your website location. And again, if somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah, so website nilnetwork.com. I think probably the best way to get in touch with me, email Michelle@nilnetwork.com. Every Wednesday evening, including this Wednesday evening. Actually, I guess every Wednesday, it's kind of turning into every other Wednesday just because of conflicts, but I host an open kind of Q&A where anyone can pop on and ask some questions about NIL anywhere that they're thinking about. So those are available as well.
Again, NIL Network. And again, you see this from a number of different angles, as we mentioned, former D1 athlete and coach and an actual NIL from the compliance standpoint with San Diego State, and now, full-time with NIL Network. What are some, and again, we're talking college here because high school is a different animal. What are some examples that you've seen as a professional, some, let's say, good uses of NIL or good results? Because again, there's the athlete income, but there's also, the taxes, the contracts, how long is it, the whole eligibility thing. What are some good examples of NIL, and then maybe some, pitfalls or things to avoid as people begin to have their own experiences with NIL? Anything you can share with us?
Yeah, what I really have started to like to see, and I still think it's very much just scratching the surface of where this is going to go, but some of those local businesses that have been getting involved with athletes. So it just makes so much sense for them. The local restaurants around any college campus, some of those local businesses, and, they're not life-changing money partnerships. It is like most of the time, probably free meals to come in, once a week. But I think that those are the type of partnerships that both sides are actually really winning. The athletes, of course, can get their meals or maybe a little bit of cash on top, and the restaurants are getting, the athletes are posting through their social media channels, and they get eyeballs on their restaurant from normal students on campus, and hitting that 18 to 24-year-old demographic that's hard to get in front of. I would say some of the pitfalls that aren't quite clear yet, and you kind of mentioned it, like taxes is on, I think, everyone's mind around this time of year, always. But I think that, we haven't heard a lot of those stories yet, but that's definitely a concern, because these deals that athletes are doing are independent contractor contracts. So they're not getting any taxes taken out. They're getting, if they say they're getting paid $1,000, they get a check for $1,000. And I think that there's a bit of gap of education of, well, you probably need to put away a couple hundred of that for tax season when it comes around. I'd also say that something that hasn't really been discussed, and I don't think we'll see this for another couple of years, is like any potential mental health implications, because this is essentially another avenue of comparison across, not only athletes within your teammates, but also across your sports at a school, and going, hey, why does that athlete get a deal and I'm not getting this deal? Or, spending more time on social media and trying to really just, grow that in a different way. And I don't know. There's a lot of studies out about social media right now and kind of the impact that it has on everyone. And also, the younger generations as well. So definitely watching those couple of things. Pell Grant implications, that kind of goes, I guess, financially with taxes as well. But I think that's something that more athletes, I wish, were aware of, because that's not going to affect the 0.01% that are making millions, but that would be impactful for an athlete that's just making, $1,000 or whatnot, and all of a sudden that they get their Pell Grant reevaluated, and every 2 years, and they come back and go, oh shoot, because I made that 1,000, I pushed it to this level, and now I've lost 3,000. I did that work for losing money, essentially. So those are a couple things that just looking out for.
Yeah, again, and it's still the landscape probably changes. I won't say every day, but frequently, as far as what's legal and what's not legal. Um, going to put you on the spot here. Ambush question. Um, as an athlete yourself, you competed NCAA and as a coach, so the rules, it's tuition, it's scholarship money, and nothing else. The school can't provide any additional benefits. Now, and this is an extreme example, so I'll frame it that way. There was a case of a student athlete that was recruited by a Division I school, and you assume they're going to get a full scholarship. But along with that, there was a local business that was providing an NIL benefit, if you will, that was multiple millions of dollars. And at some point, that deal fell through and it was no longer going to be there. The athlete decommits from that school. So a cynical person might look at that and say, well, that university was buying that athlete, and it, no different from, a lot of the recruiting scandals from years and years ago. What's your take on that? And getting out your crystal ball, where do you see NIL, possibly going? Any comment on that?
Yeah. That was a very public case that just kind of happened, I don't know, month and a half ago, 2 months ago. But the NCAA just had more additional guidance that I believe started at the beginning of January that is kind of crazy, because it's not at all how they have done reporting of violations before, to my knowledge at least, but it's like the assumption of guilt. So NCAA, and they actually had this in place before that whole incident came about. They just hadn't gone into effect until January, but it's saying that basically they see headlines, they see tweets, things like that of claiming, that athletes have signed into massive NIL deals before signing their NLI, which I wish those were not so close together because I think it's confusing, but yeah. And so presumption of guilt, where then the school has to prove that they are not guilty and that these tweets and that these stories were false in whatever regard, to try to make that a little bit more accountable, because I think that exact story is what people were fearful about with NIL. I mean, it's been happening for decades, right? We've all heard about the bags of cash under the table type situations, and now it's just out very publicly. And a lot of these boosters and donors, either, they're not bound by the NCAA. So it's really, what is that, how can the NCAA even go about this, which is a lot of kind of the chatter I see right now. If they go to enforce this new rule, are they fining the school? They've made it pretty clear that they don't want to impact athletes' eligibility anymore, but it's a tough situation. And now, we were talking a little bit about how the high school associations or the states have changed their rules to allow NIL in high school. It's like, that's almost a new floodgate that's open for these boosters and donors to get in there and tamper a bit with the recruiting process. I don't know what the answer is. I think it is massively complex, and just, we all kind of knew it was going to happen, though. I don't know. That's the crazy part.
Well, and again, thanks for that setup. The complexity that we've alluded to here is real, and that's why we need a resource like the NIL Network. So give our listeners just a little nugget, and then I know you're very busy. We're going to let you go, but what are some of the services that really stick out for you that make NIL Network stand apart from, or why people should go to your website? And then let's give out the website address one more time.
Yeah. So, I mean, NIL Network, I started it November of 2020, really to try to pull together resources to help athletes, coaches, administrators understand all the changes that were coming the following year. What it has evolved into now at this point is really kind of a connector, I would say, of the industry, of all the different stakeholders that are, evolving or not revolving around NIL. So, I have the accelerated. The reason I put that together is because I was having a ton of people that were going, hey, I need to get caught up on NIL. I need to get caught up fast. Can you tell me everything you know about it? And I'm going, okay, that's like 2.5 years, probably, tens of thousands of articles deep, but can I pull together a 4-hour course to help these people who would like to understand it? And they also would like to, be involved in the industry in some capacity, whether that's on the university side, high school. We had a club coach that's helping his athletes with the recruiting process last weekend. So connecting them or educating them in a place that prepares them to be part of that industry. And then I'm also hoping it's helpful on the other side for the universities that are hiring NIL specific roles, the service providers that are growing and hiring employees. They're leaving those positions up for a very, very long time because they can't find anyone who really understands the landscape of this industry. And so trying to connect those to the athlete, that NIL Verified is meant to help both the athletes understand who is a safe and transparent company in this space, but then also to allow the service providers to, like the good ones, to differentiate themselves, to be able to stand up and go, hey, like we are different than this other company within my industry because we are NIL Verified. We have proved that we, are fair and transparent to athletes. And then the last thing I'm working on that I haven't really marketed out so much yet, but I did my annual audit of the universities and NIL programs database a month and a half ago now. But I was going, man, I think that, once you get outside the Power Five, I think we can do better in terms of the resources that are being provided to athletes. And I don't think it needs a massive budget. Like it's simple things like, can we update the website, put some of these type of documents and support to help your athletes and your local community understand the space and, start to get involved. And so I've started building strategic roadmaps for universities to build their NIL programs pretty much on a budget to pull together some of those things. So helping admins to provide that support for their athletes. And yeah, those are kind of all the different pieces that I'm working on right now, but it's a fun time.
Well, again, we appreciate you sharing with our listeners, and I think it's definitely needed because there's a ton of questions out there, especially at the high school level. I'm sure it's multiplied even more collegiately, and it's good to have a resource like you that people can look to. One more time, let's give out the website and how they can get in touch with you.
Yep. So website is nilnetwork.com. I'm also on Instagram at NIL Network, and probably the easiest way to get in touch with me, well, even though I'm a little backed up on emails right now, it's my working to-do list is through email, Michelle at nilnetwork.com, or join us on a Wednesday evening for the Q&A, which has had some really good conversations on it recently. Over the past couple of weeks, I think we've had around, 8 to 10 people join, which are bigger groups than what it normally looks like. And yeah, just everyone is, it's from students to people who are starting NIL companies to admins who are working in the space, coaches, parents, athletes. It's a fun time. Everyone pops on and just has a good conversation for about 30 minutes.
And they can find that on the website.
Yep, that is on the website.
All right. Well, Michelle Meyer, NIL Network, thanks so much as always for sharing with us on Wednesday Wisdom. I'm excited to think about the changes that are going to be taking place the next time we have you on.
Thanks so much.
For our listeners, we do this every Wednesday and just about every day on the Educational Lady Podcast. We also upload our episodes to the Educational Lady Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening. Check out the NIL Network. And thanks again for listening to the Educational Lady Podcast. We'll see you next time. Always a great time with Michelle Meyer. Before we go, want to give a shout out to our partners, We Coach, the global community of women in high school sports, and the Florida Coaches Coalition, and to our sponsors. We only have 8 of them. I've used them all directly or indirectly. And you should use them too. Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. That's athleticsurveys.com. Start taking the pulse of your parents and your student athletes. Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. You can find out more at sidelineinteractive.com. Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. Bring your school's legacy to life with a Wall of Fame touchscreen console. That's Vital Signs, walloffame.com/Jake. Gipper, create custom content for your school social media channel. Use our code ADPOD10. That's Gipper.com. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Go to hometownticketing.com for more information. Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle. As an AD, we were a Huddle school. Go to huddle.com, find out all the things they can do for you, your coaches, and your athletes. Snap Mobile. Go to snapraise.com. Check out their entire suite of platforms. That's snapraise.com. And Final Forms. Go to finalforms.com/Jake. They are there to help you plan the best season you've ever had. That's finalforms.com/Jake. We'll see you next time on Wednesday Wisdom on the Educational AD Podcast.